Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating story about a company you might never have heard of, but one that is literally powering the 21st century. Legendary investor Peter Lynch always said to invest in what you know. But sometimes, the most critical, powerful businesses are the ones buried deep, deep in the supply chain. Today, we're looking at 5N+, or VNP. They are the unseen material masters making renewable energy, national security, and even space exploration actually possible. Let's look at the numbers and see what the data is really telling us.
Just look at this number right out of the gate, 73%. That is the year-over-year jump in 5N+'s adjusted EBITDA for fiscal year 2025, hitting a massive $92.4 million and completely smashing their own guidance. I mean, in a market where so many companies are getting crushed by rising costs and a tough macro environment, seeing a 73% jump in core operating profitability, that tells us immediately that something structural is working perfectly in their business model. Okay, let's dive into this. That insane profitability is coming from a huge surge in specialized volume. They jumped from $289.3 million in fiscal 2024 to a record-setting $391.1 million in 2025. That's a 35% top-line increase, but here's the kicker. It's not just about pushing more volume out the door, it's about what they're selling. They've pivoted hard into value-added products and specialty semiconductors. Warren Buffett loves a business with a deep, unbreachable competitive moat, right? Well, by making themselves the absolute go-to supplier for advanced materials that their clients literally cannot live without, 5N+ has been able to command higher pricing, easily brush off inflation, and drive their adjusted gross margins up to nearly 34% of sales. Moving on to Section 1, the terrestrial engine, powering renewable energy. To really get this business the way a Peter Lynch would, we need to look at their end markets. This is where the rubber meets the road. 5N+ recently expanded a massive supply agreement with First Solar, who are absolute giants in the solar space. When you see endless fields of high-tech solar panels, you're often actually looking at the end product of 5N+'s specialty semiconductor compounds. They provide the ultra-pure raw materials that make these next-gen thin-film solar panels so efficient and commercially viable in the first place.
And here is why this matters so much. This is not some short-term, flash-in-the-pan revenue bump. They didn't just land a lucky one-off order. They actually went in, revised their current contracts for increased volumes for 2025 and 2026, and then locked in more increased volumes all the way through the 2028 contract period. That gives them incredibly predictable, multi-year earnings visibility. As analysts looking for factual, grounded data, a multi-year backlog like this is exactly the anchor you want in a high-growth story. Let's shift gears to Section 2, the orbiting and defense engine, focusing on space and security. Now, what's really mind-blowing about this company is the sheer scope of where their products end up. 5N+ materials aren't just sitting in solar farms on Earth. They are literally orbiting the planet right now. Their ultra-pure specialty semiconductors are the critical ingredients in the solar cells that power both commercial and highly sensitive national security satellites. They are basically providing the battery source for the orbital infrastructure that runs our entire modern communication and defense grid. And demand up there is absolutely surging. Their subsidiary, Azure Space, ramped up capacity by 35% in 2024, another 30% in 2025, and they are already scaling up by another 25% for 2026. You might be wondering why the massive rush. Well, the data points straight to the explosion of AI adoption and our insatiable global appetite for connectivity. AI data centers need robust, space-based observation and communication layers, and clients are scrambling to secure their supply of these specialized space solar cells literally years in advance. Which brings us to a massively important, heavily vetted piece of news. 5N+ just bagged an $18.1 million grant directly from the U.S. government. This money is earmarked for one highly specific purpose: to expand their St. George, Utah facility so they can recycle and refine a critical material called germanium. As their CEO, Gervais Jacques, rightly pointed out, this award seriously reinforces their unique leadership position. It directly supports the U.S. government's executive order to increase American mineral production. Guys, when the federal government steps in to literally co-fund your factory expansion because your materials are that mission-critical, you have achieved the ultimate economic moat. It completely secures a domestic supply chain for materials that are quite literally matters of national security. So let's demystify what they're actually making out there in Utah. They produce what are called high-purity, dislocation-free germanium wafers. What does that mean in plain English? Basically, they take a raw element and refine it to absolute atomic-level perfection.
This flawless material is then used in infrared optics, night vision systems, military surveillance windows, and yep, those space solar cells we just talked about. This new grant allows them to recover and valorize up to 20 metric tons of this stuff every single year from industrial residues.
That brings us to Section 3, the sustainable moat, exploring their closed-loop advantage. That word I just used, recover, is the perfect transition into their sustainability practices. Like we said, a core Warren Buffett rule is finding companies with a durable competitive advantage. Well, 5N+ has built an incredible one through a circular economy model. They aren't just relying on traditional mining. They use proprietary tech to recover degraded resources from other industries, refine them, and upcycle them into critical advanced materials. This whole recycling program spans 3 continents. It gives them a flexible, highly secure, and ridiculously cost-effective global sourcing network that competitors simply cannot replicate overnight. And this brilliantly illustrates how the whole machine ties together. Their latest sustainability report details a huge expansion of tellurium recovery up in Montreal. Why do we care about tellurium? Because it is the exact specialty semiconductor material needed for the terrestrial renewable energy sector. It feeds directly into those massive multi-year First Solar contracts we covered earlier. It is the ultimate, highly profitable, closed-loop system.
Finally, let's hit Section 4, the market snapshot and how we value all this growth.
Okay, so we understand the business, the tech, and the incredibly wide moat. But how is the market actually pricing this? Looking at the latest TMX Money Data snapshot, 5N+ has a market cap of around $3.8 billion, with the stock trading near $42.50. Now, the PE ratio is sitting at 54.52. That tells us right away the market has already priced in a lot of future growth. This is a high-growth valuation, no question. But the metric a value investor like Peter Lynch or Warren Buffett would be drooling over here is the return on equity. At nearly 30%, this company is operating with ruthless, exceptional efficiency. They are churning out massive profits from their retained capital, which is the absolute hallmark of a fundamentally dominant business operating with a wide moat. And management clearly expects this momentum to keep rolling. Based on their locked-in contracts and surging demand, they've issued super confident forward guidance, projecting an adjusted EBITDA of between $100 and $105 million for fiscal year 2026. They're heavily expanding their earnings base, laser-focused on productivity, and perfectly positioned to ride the massive structural tailwinds in space, security, and AI-driven renewable energy. Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. We spend so much time obsessing over the companies making the shiny final products, right? The branded solar panels, the high-tech satellites, the AI data centers. But as we've seen today, by strictly following the data, the true foundational value often lies completely unseen in the supply chain. So I'll leave you with this. In the absolute arms race for next-generation technology, who really holds the power? The companies making the products, or the invisible material masters, like 5N+, who make those products possible in the first place? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep your eyes on the data.